you time, YouTube. All right, we are live. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 231. I'm your host, Greg Goud. The gang's all here with Jeremy and Tony and Steve's back and Don and Mike and John and Garth and Chris and Jim and other people. Let's talk slot cars. Does anybody have any topic they'd like to start the show off with? All right, we'll do our usual, starting off with show and tell. If you got any new projects, purchases, paint jobs, other P words, raise your virtual hand so I make sure to call on you, or wave something in front of the camera like Mike did. Did you want to show that off?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show.
You are officially showing it off now. Oh, is that
the Bentley is green, and I got such a decent finish on it, I'm afraid to do the problems with it or just let it go. It's one of those. It's like, ooh, is this good enough or not?
I mean, that would absolutely be good enough for me, but I have very low standards for myself.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm hoping that it will turn out okay once I get the decals.
What kind of paint did you use, Mike? Sorry.
I used Testors. I had this is my favorite metallic green from Testors, so it's an enamel, and it's okay. I still, I'm debating. I really, really, really don't want to spend the money on an airbrush, but I really should, because that it's so difficult to get the right amount of paint to get both a decent finish and full colors, complete coloration, especially in small spots. Like you can see on this side, you can see, I think, see how it's a little white on the inside there?
Yeah, because it didn't spray in there. Yeah.
If I get close enough to get inside there, it's just like run city. So that's why I figure, well, maybe there's another spot out at the top. You can see at the indentations there.
That's
but
okay.
luckily,
just listen. Just tell people you were planning a fade.
Well, the good thing is some versions of that have those dark gray black colored in there. So I may do a flat black surround on those, and that'll take care of that problem. And maybe on the other one too, if I tape it up good enough and get a spray of black on the inside, it won't be quite as noticeable. So we'll see. Well, it doesn't affect the way the car runs.
No, but Testors enamel is in a little rattle can. It's always been the toughest thing to use.
Yeah. Well, the using the Tamiya ones, the metallic doesn't really work all that well. The metallic on this is much better. So, but we'll see. I could always, dip in alcohol and start over.
No. Listen, well, you're going to be running it, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, then that's why you want a 10-20 car. You want it to look like a 10 from 20 feet away.
Yeah. It'll be okay once I get the decals on it and stuff. And I should really put lights in it, but I am not Geo. So.
And do you run in the dark ever?
We haven't yet. I'm entertaining the idea. It should be interesting because there's no windows in this garage at all, so it will be dark.
Yeah, you gotta put some kind of, put a couple of battery power.
Have to put things. Like an LED dimmer light or something like that too, or lights around there. Probably I should order Greg's light things. And put some of those around.
Wiring. That requires wiring. You can get, things that are powered by AA's that look like,
No, I'm not adverse to the wiring. It'd be kind of cool. It's not, actually
and
correct.
It's getting close. It's getting close to the season where you can get the Lenmark stuff. Those things work great. Like
what's that?
The people use for making like Christmas dioramas. I use them
Oh,
around our
really?
track. Yeah, yeah, and like you can get like little lampposts. You can get fencing with lights in them. Really cool stuff, and not that expensive. And they're already pre-wired.
Oh,
They just put batteries in them. They got a switch, and away you go.
Yeah, go to a Michaels or a Hobby Lobby or
Home Depot, it
yeah,
puts it in their seasonal stuff.
yeah,
I'm sure Lowe's does.
yeah.
That's
okay.
and the best thing is after Christmas, and they're all on sale. That's
Yep.
really cool.
Oh, yeah.
I think even Dollar Tree has that kind of stuff now.
Yep.
Like
Yeah,
Oh,
a
really?
dollar
yeah,
and a quarter, and you can experiment with it and waste a lot of time.
Okay. I got it. Look what Jim is tempting with his wallpaper here. Oh, okay. I guess Jim's. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that caught my eye. Sorry.
Well, Jim's ready to do a presentation. What you got today, Jim?
Well, let's see here. Let me hit my share screen. I hit a milestone this past week, and I'm really happy with it. I never thought this would happen, but hit 4,000 subscribers.
Very nice.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So
That's
as Greg
Well
would say,
done. Very well done.
I'm making tens of dollars off of
Tens of
this.
dollars, tens of dollars per week instead of per month.
That's true.
You're now officially one of the taller midgets.
Yeah, absolutely. A medium-sized fish in a little bitty pond. Yeah. Okay.
That's better than hitting a milestone and knocking a hole in your oil pan.
Well, that's true. So somebody noticed my wallpaper, and little background here. A friend of mine, Rick Vogelin. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yeah.
The gentleman right here, Rick Vogelin, is a local racer with us, primarily with HO, but dabbles in 32nd scale. And he was the PR director for Corvette Racing for, I think, about 15 years. And this shot he sent me, I guess, courtesy of Chevrolet. And it's the 50th anniversary of Corvette at Le Mans, and you see the car in the center.
Cool.
And
Wow.
that car went out on the track. They did a couple of demonstration laps with it. So, I don't know that much of Corvettes, especially back in the day, but I'm learning as we go. This car now resides in New Jersey, and it shows occasionally, or quite a bit actually, at vintage races. So it's out there. And so, being that this car is coming out, I figured I'd take my own pictures.
Very nice.
This thing is gorgeous. So I went over to a friend of mine, John Roberts, who has this just absolutely beautifully detailed track, and did some test shots, some beauty shots for a video that'll probably be coming out on Thursday or Friday. And speaking of videos, Greg, the GNS Tire Grinder video part 2 that was supposed to be out 2 weeks ago, it went out about an hour ago, half an hour
Oh,
ago.
okay. Cool.
So just so you know, I wasn't putting you on the back burner totally.
Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes, guys.
Okay, so there's the shot of the car on the track, and this is a non-running prototype. So not that we weren't allowed to run it. It has a motor. It doesn't have wiring in it, so we weren't allowed to run it. I was tempted to put a motor in or wire it up, but yeah, Marco would have killed me. And you see in the background there, just fortuitous, there's an electric green sticker because they are the distributor for MR Slot Car.
But you
Yeah,
were
so
able to hold it in your hand and feel the pan and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
What do you think so far?
Yeah, it looks great. I've got some detail shots here that are a little bit tighter or more close up than you may have seen
Go
before.
ahead.
The wheels look absolutely gorgeous. Maybe Chris is
nice.
on, maybe he knows. I don't know if these are two-piece, but they're definitely different color, including the lightning areas of the knockoffs. So they've gone to some great pains to make this thing look really good. Detail of the headlight bezels and the grille and the headlight lenses and so on. The driver has quite a bit of detail in it, as does the interior. It's hard to see. I think there's actually a speedometer in there. I couldn't get in there, and I didn't want to cut the top off to take a picture of it. So I think it's actually in there. So it's a correct interior. You can see it's two-tone. So again, this body I think the body is probably in production or very close to production, but it looks great. Here's a tight shot of the overall chassis, and I think you've all seen this. To get an idea of what it is. Here's the front axle assembly, how that's held in place. You know, it's a plastic or whatever nylon upright on the all aluminum chassis. There's the setup of how the guide is attached with another piece. So that's attached to the chassis, and obviously the guide is attached to that. The interior, there's the 4 body mounts. They slide on, very similar to another brand that you may know, but it is different. They do have a lot of float in them. This particular car has a ton of float, and I think it's just because it's been passed around between a lot of people. So that is adjustable. When you look at the side mounts, they are adjustable, or not adjustable, but you can adjust the float by using different thicknesses of washers in there. So it's going to be a car that is highly adjustable because it does have a motor pod, and you can see how the body mounts allow for quite a bit of body float. So that's my overview. Like I said, I'll have a video coming out of the actual car probably Thursday or Friday. Marco, I sent Marco this picture. He says, did you run this car? I go, no, that's a Photoshop. So that's a quick look at maybe some of the things you may have not have seen, some of the close-ups and so on, but there's the car.
Yeah, hold on. Stupid background.
Yeah. So put it in front of there we go. So it looks great. You've seen pictures of it before, but this is a non-running prototype. And according to the press release, these should be available for shipping sometime in December, the anticipated ship date. If you want one, I think this is just my personal opinion. I think this will go like the shadow. So if you want one, you best pre-order one ASAP.
Yeah.
So that's it for me, but a big week being able to have, I do have the Lotus prototype too. I didn't take any pictures of it yet, but it's just a 3D printed, the chassis and the motor pod and the body are all one piece, and the tires are all one piece. So you've seen pictures of that before, but I'm really looking forward to the Lotus Esprit Turbo coming out to do battle with the Jaguar and the McLaren.
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah,
do you
I've
have an Inco Corvette?
No, I don't.
And nobody had an Inco Corvette because I saw that in your picture that I think there was a 935 or 365 Porsche behind it.
5.6.
Yeah, I used a couple of my friend John Roberts again. That was his track that I used to take those pictures at. And so I tried to get something that was period correct or semi-period correct. So there's a 356. I believe it was an Inco, and there's a GTO. I'm not sure what that was.
Yeah, because it looks pretty big on your hands. I mean, I
Well,
don't know the.
It's
well,
not.
Gio, they were big cars. They're not small.
It's actually not too far off of scale. I mean, there's no 30-second scale car out there that is actual 30-second scale in all dimensions. Anybody plays silly bugger with them. It is as close as anything out there excluding the Thunder slots, which they're not even close whatsoever. It is fairly close. The 356 was the Ninko 356 is hideous in terms of scale. It's a big fat blob compared to what it should have been. Anyway, as John was saying, that in its one-to-one nature is certainly a bigger car than the 356, but it is not by any means stretched out of scale to make it stupid looking. It's very, very close.
When you see it in person, it looks absolutely spot on. You know, I don't have anything to put side by side. I didn't measure it, but when you just look at it sitting on the track, the proportions look great. It's well done.
Yeah.
And you know, when we get the other two cars out, the Ferrari 250 and the Aston, whatever brand, whether it's Ninko or Thunderslot, at least within the brand, those cars look scale to each other. And this will be the same way, I'm sure, and they're going to run great. Being that it's an aluminum chassis, the tires are pretty narrow, and I've seen some comment on that in some of the chats and on Facebook. This is not a GT3 car. It's got small tires on it. It's got a small motor in it. It's going to be, you know, in my opinion, it's going to run period correct compared to the others. It's not going to be blazing fast, but it's going to run really good. and it's going to create a whole new class in its own, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I think it's I mean, it's a great thing that they are bringing out these cars. As I've said multiple times, I don't think that was required to have a metal chassis. They could have done as a plastic chassis as they've done with the other cars. They have made my life easier to put the chip on it without having to mess around with the old sensor. But yeah, I think it's a big hole that and they're gonna sell pretty well. I mean,
Yeah,
I already have
to
a
that-
couple of pre-orders.
to that too, there have been people say, well, the tires are so skinny. Well, the real car had skinny tires on it, but that's kind of beside the point for a slot car. Sure, you can put, I didn't put it in there, but I've got a picture of the back end of the car. There's lots of room to put big tires on this if you want to. And if you want to, have at it. But I'm going to run this. I'm going to propose that we run these cars dead stock. You know, not even changing guide. We don't need to change guides. We don't run the tires the same on all three of the cars, the Ferrari, the Aston, and this. I think it's going to be a great class. But like I said, if that's your thing, you want to make this run like an NSR GT3 car, you probably can.
I think
No,
I think from looking at Jim's pictures, the first thing that occurred to me is how great that car would look with some of Gio's light kit in it.
Yeah. Just to comment on some of the tires and stuff like that. That Corvette and all the ones that you see behind you on that wallpaper, they ran with 195 millimeter rear tires. If you look at the tires on the MR slot car or on the Corvette behind Jim, if you measure those up in real scale, they are 10-inch wide tires. The Corvette never ran with tires close to 10 inches wide. So you can call them too narrow. Actually, in scale, they're about 15 to 20% too wide. But again, back to Jim's point, the pod is very narrow. There's a ton of room in the chassis width where it runs on the back of the chassis plate, where it runs on either side of the pod. If you need to put, you know, steamroller tires on there, like, go ahead. As far as the motor, it's an 18K motor. I've run plenty of them in different cars. It is a really nice motor for what it is. It's not a 40,000 K motor. It's an 18K motor, but it's quick.
Yeah.
The car weighs, the rolling chassis weighs just under, the Corvette's going to weigh just right around 54 grams on a rolling chassis. The others will be a snick less because the chassis plates are a tiny bit shorter. Any Ninko that runs around out there, this will run away from any Ninko. It's not even close how much better it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also like 20 years of technology in front, right? I mean, it should be like that. I mean, I'm not saying that I want just to see whether there were some shots that Jim has made compared with next to the Ninko Corvette. I'm not just saying that the Ninko should be better or anything. Huh?
You know, and interestingly enough, tire width on a 1/32 scale slot car is a bit of a, you know, that's a bit of a misnomer. Just great big honk on wide tires do not necessarily give you more grip at all.
And
as long as it's good.
Courtney, I will measure it for you to see if you can put 12 millimeter wide tires on it, and I'll put the 35K Professor motor in it before I send it back.
And if you really want to put a Lexan body on.
Yeah.
Did Ernie
other question, if you were involved with that, Chris? I mean, so why the inline slim can and not, for instance, a sidewinder or ankle winder like the Revo slot in with the shorter motor? Again, I'm talking because I want the most space for putting a freaking chip in it.
Yeah. The pod can be used for other things down the road if you want to have some slimmer cars. I'm not going to say anything about that other than potentially it could go under narrower cars.
Okay.
You know, for what it is, it's great.
But
it's
so a short canning angle winder configuration could go in that car, under that body, or there could be, for instance, interference with the interiors, for instance.
Yeah, I mean that it's higher, so there wanted to be a good size interior on the thing to make it look like a slot car. So you know, I mean, you could do a bunch of stuff. I mean, it could be you know, a hinged steel laser cut chassis with a 80,000. Like it could, it is what it is. It's a great car as it is. Um, you know, really nice in I mean, unlike anything else out there. The motor pod has two mounting holes, one forward, one in the back, and they're both in the center line of the chassis. So as where Jim's got them there. So that lets the pod rotate when you have it like that. Any pod that has 3 or 4 mounting points, the pod doesn't rotate, the pod tilts. And what I mean by that is one wheel can come up, but the other wheel cannot go down. It's restricted. So on this design, as one wheel comes up, the other one goes down, which is really nice. And there's enough space under the side lugs to put springs, foam washers, silicone washers, or whatever you want to have to get some really good rotation on there. And as far as a metal plate, well, Revo slot, a lot of guys like Revo slots. And one of the reasons they like them is you don't really have to do a whole bunch to them. They're you know, you don't have to cook the chassis, you don't have to do a whole bunch. So yes, you can get a bent metal chassis every once in a while, but generally they are flatter and straighter than plastic chassis. And you know, they go just fine. It's not heavy. The plate itself weighs 13.5 grams. And again, the whole running chassis, gears, motors, braid is 54-ish, just under 54, I think, for the Corvette. So it's not the lightest car out there, but it's certainly not porky by any stretch, and it's right in line with a whole bunch of RTR plastic.
Well, I like the casting of the tires. They look period correct bias ply. They look really cool.
They do
Yeah,
have
well, that's, you know,
it's been worn off for whatever reason. I know that this car may have been run or those tires may have been run, but there is tread on the tires, but it's very difficult to see because it's primarily worn off.
yeah.
I think any worn off is a grease. Hasn't been doing
The
a
other
lot
neat
of
little
testing.
thing about the pod is that the underside of the front and rear lugs have been molded with a radius in. So they're sort of like U-shaped on the bottom. So they will rotate really nicely on the top of the chassis plate.
Jim, were you able to hook up any power just to see how loud it is? I'm just because one of the things I
No.
hate about Revo slot is the way they echo and they're loud and just noisy.
No, it was a non-running prototype, so I didn't attempt to do anything like that. Whether the motor works or not, I don't know. I assume it does, but I didn't do that.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll hear about that once people have.
Yeah,
Chris,
Yeah,
how
when
does
when I first put the picture up, I go, "How did you get one?" And Marco said, "Don't forget to tell people it's a prototype. They're not. Don't call Electric Dreams every minute. Say, where's my pre-order? I see somebody's already got one."
Yeah.
So,
right.
definitely not out yet. And another
Yeah.
aside, what Chris was talking about, the way the pod rocks, that was kind of the idea that I think I tried to. If you've seen the pod that Garth has built, that's kind of what the emulation was, is to try to make a 4-lug slotted style pod emulate that. And that was the reasoning behind it.
But
I've
it's
pre-ordered a Thundershot one.
sorry,
I pre-ordered the Thundershot one,
a Thunderslot one what?
Corvette.
They,
A Thunderslot Corvette.
You mean the MR slot car?
the one we're talking about is MR slot car.
Yeah, I know, but I've got the Thundershot one. I didn't know the MR did one. I'm
Didn't
going to have
know
to
that
order one of
Thunderslot-
them now.
There is no
Thunderslot
Thunder
one?
slot Corvette.
I didn't know Thunderslot did one.
Yeah, where's that order? Are you
I've
sure
got
it was a
Thunder-
Thunder slot? Because it says
I
nobody else.
thought the Thundershot one I ordered. I got one on, got 2 on pre-order. I have to check what make they are now.
Yeah, nobody else knows about it. All right, while we're waiting for Tony to dig that up, go ahead, Gio. There's a Thunder slot.
No, this is Emma's slot car. Okay, I think, yeah, some of you have already seen some of these pictures. So this was a failed attempt to provide the yellow and blue car to Greg. I messed it up with the colors, so I had the brilliant idea to ask ChatGPT about which blue I should use for a Bilstein type of car or livery, let's say. And the color that I got, I think it's Tamiya one. It's too dark. And in any case, I had to prepare a car for one of my drivers, Alex. And so, I mean, I had the two options. One was to throw the body away or kind of remove all the paint. But although I'm not super happy with how it came, I mean, I said, oh, okay, so a lot of work for doing that. So then I decided to repurpose the body for Alex, basically. For Greg, he needs to wait a bit longer. But this time now I've sorted out the new blue, so it should be fine. So it's a fantasy livery. The clear code didn't come up really well. I mean, I made a kind of another stupid mistake of spraying it when it was raining outside, but I didn't have any other options because I want to race the car this Wednesday. I mean, you ever seen the other builds comes up pretty easily, and you know, putting together is not a big deal. The masking was a bit more complex that I could have done a simpler job, but I think it came out pretty nice. And the white stripe that you see is I'm using some vinyl that one of the guys cut for me. So I have like pre-cut strips that I can put on the car. It stays pretty well. It also helps covering some of the masking mistakes that I made. I think that's all. So yeah, another Mustang added to the stable. I think for my internal group, we have all the colors covered now. And so now I need to just concentrate on the one for Greg, which I should have received if everything goes accordingly early next week, so I can start working on it.
I think it looks fantastic. And to be perfectly fair to Gio, when he showed me those colors, I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit darker than I usually like, but that's fine. He's like, no. If you don't like it, then I don't want to. And then we went back and forth about, what he should do, strip it or whatever. And he decided that he would keep that one and finish it for his own use and do another one with, different colors for me.
Well, if you had like a need, because you had to raise the car,
Yeah. I don't have an urgent need for it. Yeah. That helped too. So, but yeah, I was not all, get that shit away from me. That car is beautiful.
I wasn't all like that.
As they usually are. So yeah, good job on that.
Right, Greg, it is MR.
You find it?
Yes, it's MR, yeah.
Oh, okay. So like we thought.
I made a mistake.
No worries. We all do that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other show and tell?
I was going to ask Chris, how does the braking compare to some of the Polycar pods that use that same motor?
It's a little bit better because it's about the same. It's a little bit stronger in terms of the magnets and the brakes.
Okay.
It's going to be fine, and if it's not enough, I mean, you can always change a pinion or a crown. So
True.
I tested 2 or 3 of the motors, and they're fine.
Okay. Just curious.
All right. Any other questions for people to circle back on? All right. Let's talk about racing. If you got some past, present, or future slot car racing yourself or multiple people, Now is the time to talk about it. So raise your virtual hand if you want to. I didn't do any racing because I was away on a holiday weekend, so I got nothing. Dewan, what you got? Don't raise your hand if you're not ready.
Have to unmute. Sorry, forgot to unmute. Okay, well, this weekend I went down to Los Angeles to race with some of the guys at Eddie Shore's Mini Bula, I think it was called, racetrack. And let me get that up here real quick. It was really nice. You know, he's revamped his track. I think you've seen that. He went through a little whole routine. Right. Yep, there we go. I can't find my mouse. There it goes. So there we go. So that's his track, and you see that he's added some scenery, and it's really, you know, the track is. He actually increased a little bit of the angle on the bank, but the scenery is really nice. I mean, it's not an overkill, but it just adds a nice little touch to it. And just the polished surface of the track is it's really nice. It has lots of
Mini King track.
Yes. He calls it a mini Bula. Bob Scott is the one that goes around. He has several of these floating around the country. And I'm considering possibility of getting a wood routed track, and I kind of like this one too. But anyway, that's a different subject. I want to ask towards the end of the chat on kind of these things on wood tracks. But anyway, we had two classes that we raced, which is the sideways group 5 and the what's that track? Regal side group 2. That's right. And luckily, we had a new guy show up because I don't have little arrows. Okay, when I do my share, my arrows disappear. on how to move the. Let me see if I can do it this way. There it goes. Okay, here it goes. I have to move this to the side, so I can't navigate. There it goes. So we had two classes, racing sideways. Like I said, we got a new guy, so therefore I did not finish last. Oh boy, but it was fun racing. And then the second race again was the Regal Slot Group 2s, and again I didn't finish last. I hadn't raced in a while, so I had first time I brought my cars out since the MR Slot Car event, which I didn't really do a lot of preparation for it. So that's all we have. And then next week we'll be at Lucky Dreams on the 19th, if I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll be on the 19th of October. We'll be at the Lucky Dreams, so that's gonna be fun. We're gonna do F1 and Regal ski. So that's all I have from Barrow Soccer Club. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question? What's the race format that they use? Do they set a time and you race as fast as you can? Do they set laps? I'm trying to figure out what this chart shows.
Yeah. Okay. So we do 4-minute heats. The host gets to dictate pretty much the format, but almost everyone, the only thing that they fluctuate is either 3-minute heats or 4-minute heats. And since we didn't have a whole lot of people, I think it was only 15 of us, 14, 15 of us, or something like that. We did the 4-minute heats. And
so the total is he went 172.2 feet or whatever.
Laps. So we have one heat in each. You have you stay in one lane for 4 minutes, then it is on a random rotation basis using your race not race coordinator, track mate.
Okay.
And so you'll come up like I was the 4th heat, the 9th heat, and the 13th and 15th heat, something like that. So you get 4 minutes in each lane, and you're always with a different group. You're not racing the same guys each time, and it just randomly rotates you through.
Okay.
All righty. That's it. I think it was a video he did too, but I'm not going to show the video. Stop my share there.
All right. Good stuff. Good racing. Moving on, Gio, you are up, sir.
Yeah, so the reason why I had to finish that car while it was raining was because I wanted to race them last night. So with the 5 cars on the track, I'm fighting my cat that is trying to bite me. 5 cars on the track, and so we had again Andre, the new driver, was kind of racing this green one. Mike T on the white one was late. I just put the car there waiting for him, but he didn't show up. So we had the first couple of races without him. Then the yellow one, the gold one is James. This red or maroon is mine, the one that I was driving, and this blue and yellow Alex. So,
so there's a car ready if Greg ever visits. Then.
Say again.
So there's a car already there if Greg ever calls in.
Of course, yeah. There is one also for you when you come over here, but that's not.
Oh, great!
Wheels. It's not on wheels, so you just have.
Oh, it has no wheels.
The motor running. Anyway, so practice as usual. I mean, we did a bunch of laps in order to warm up the cars. And then went on qualify. I just pulled off a 5-1-0. I don't know from where, but Alex wasn't that far off. I mean, one of the nice things about these cars is that the motors are, or the cars in general, are pretty equal. So it's it's very nice. I mean, to prepare them without doing a bunch of a lot of setup. So I don't do much work on them. More or less, you just install the chip and keep them running, and they come out very well. I mean, performance-wise, they are pretty similar. I saw this also result in very close racing, as you're gonna see. So these are our grid for first race, and as I mentioned, the results were very close. So both Alex and I basically 100 laps, and the difference between us after 100 laps was less than a meter, around a meter. So this is my car and this is Alex. So he was kind of sneaking on me. But when I realized that he was just, I mean, they were like, that was for the win. I started basically in the last 10 laps, try to be very careful not to let him overtake me. And then we moved to the second race. So I start from the front, Alex second, James and Andre, the new guy. And these, again, very close. Although I had a bit more crashes, I think Alex had, and I had to repair. Alex had problem in the pit with the bloody controller not responding, but still very close. And this time, even closer than the previous one. So getting very close. I mean, to a mistake there, like an off, would have cost me basically the race. No way that I would have been able to kind of recover from that. Screwed up. Just a second. So then we went into semi-darkness, let's say, with one light totally on in the garage. And now you can see Mike T joined us. So there is a 5th car on the track. And let's see. So this time, actually, again, very close racing, but this time the win went to James. So he managed to pull this off fair and square. And again, I was really close. I didn't take a picture for him, but I was kind of close to behind him. And with like 5 laps remaining, he had 1 damage point remaining. So everybody was trying to kind of get in his head in order to crash. But then I crashed it actually, so he got like another couple of meters in front of me, so there wasn't a way that I was gonna snatch it from him. So this I think is the first race that he has ever won in our group, or maybe second. But yeah, this was really good for him. Then last race in darkness. I have a video of this, and it was quite interesting. So this basically, I don't know. I mean, it was a bit of a better race for me for sure, because I didn't have many crashes to keep my nose clean. But also, like the new guy Andrew was racing, was a kind of going around from the outside lane, which is kind of easier because the corners are not that sharp. And at one point, basically, we had like in the middle of the race, something like 25, 30 laps without crashes. So we're going. So, and I took that, I mean, I have a video of that. So that is, try to figure out how to upload on YouTube from a machine, from a computer, not just from the phone. I'm gonna put it up there. So yeah, that's all very good. These cars are very good. I mean, I really kind of enjoying putting them together and racing them. Highly recommended as a class if you want some kind of equalizing class that you don't have to fiddle around too much, and they look good on the track, especially with the lights.
I mean, that's mostly the reason I asked you to do a car for me, so I can so I can have one that I like, and then put it on the track in front of the other guys and race it around and let them drive it so they can get enthused about shit. Because sometimes it's a hard sell when you're talking about upwards of 100 plus for a car. But if it runs real sweet and they like it, then it's a lot easier. So I haven't suggested it until I have a car to show them.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that in the past as well. I mean, when I propose new classes, but yeah, and they are super quiet as well.
Nice.
Even quieter than the kind of sometimes the Java GT3's car. I mean, yeah. So anyway, they are whisper.
Yeah, nice. Alrighty, thank you for talking about that. Anybody else got any racing they want to talk about? Projects? All right, floor is open. So as long as it's not.
Can I just rewind a little bit? I just want to
Absolutely.
defend Jim's excellent photography. There's this great book called Racing Corvettes. It's by Art Evans. And it's all about the early years, 57, 58, and 59. And if you look at one of the photos in the book, this is at Pomona. And look there, there's a 356, an Austin Healey 3000, a Gullwing. So you've put it with the right kinds of cars.
I had no fear.
Well done, Jim. Well done.
Jim put his hand up. What'd you like to talk about, Jim?
Oh, thank you, John. It was just luck. I just asked John Roberts, who's the track it was, get anything close to this period, so he had those cars. Yeah, I've got a club corner, and I wasn't here last week, so this is a week and a half old, but I thought I'd share it because it's one of the best races we've had in a long time. It was at Mike Andrews Silicon City Speedway, and we ran those 4 classes. Pioneer Legends run great around the track. We allow gear changes, gears, wheels, not tires, gears, stock tires, and guide. And once you do that, they're really smooth runners and they run reasonably well. They are a bit top heavy, but they run great. Ian built this Porsche 908 for the Classic Le Mans because it's kind of dominated by the 908 in that class. And I told Ian that I thought this was probably the best body that he'd ever done. I think it looks really good. There's our group. We had 14 people there, small track, garage track, 4-lane. And we had this, like I said, the 4 classes, Pioneer Legends, Classic Le Mans, Group C. You notice there's a bunch of cars here that raced at the Slotted Nationals. And in Group C, we had 4 drivers out of the 14 that had been in the A main at the Slotted Nationals. So it's a tough crowd. Formula One. We allow scale auto and NSR. We require that you change the scale auto motor to an NSR motor. So the drivetrain is spec'd, but you're allowed to run the 2 different cars. Just a couple of quick results. Ian didn't run Group C because he's the champ and he didn't have to. But I got a win in Group C, and Herman was there, a local guy. Nickname is Gaza. He ran second, so that was a very good class. And I'm going to blow my own horn because this was the race of the year. Ian built that 908 because my 908 was really good. It was a round robin, and with 14 people, he was on the track first. And when he was on his last lane, I was on my first lane. So I only was head to head with him one time. But he put down 140 laps with no offs. And so it's like, oh, you got to run a perfect race. And I pretty much ran the race of my life. I ran 140 laps, no offs, finished about 3 feet ahead of him. So that's why this is probably the race of the year we've had in Northern California.
Awesome.
And so that was Silicon City from a couple of weeks ago. And Kiwi Mike Andrews, who also has a house in South Carolina, and he was not affected by anything that's happened in the past month or so. So he's going to be with us for another 2 or 3 years before he moves to South Carolina.
I had a question for you, Jim.
Yeah.
It's similar with what they asked me about our format of our races. Do you guys have 4 classes or 4 sets of races? Give us a rundown on how you guys conduct a race.
What's the question? I didn't quite hear that.
It was one.
You guys do 4 classes.
Yeah.
Races. Give us a rundown of a typical race that how many.
Well, I think it's pretty much like Far Out. You run round robins, right?
Uh-huh.
But we don't have 25 or 30 people, so we can run 4 classes in a day because we only have 14. And that's the difference. It's just a straight round robin. When we have 14, a good crowd, he cuts it down to 2.5 minutes per lane. So it's not 3 minutes, but it's close. So he does shorten it just slightly, but not by very much. But other than that, it's the same. We have about 2 hours of practice in the morning. I think this time we had 1 class, then we had lunch, and then we had the other 3, and we're out by 4-ish, 4:30. And he starts at 9 in the morning. So with 14 people, I prefer 3 because I think it's just more relaxed, but you can do 4. We've gone to 3 classes at Modesto at the Motown track. And so it's 3 classes in a day, but we do qualifying there too, which we don't do at the home tracks. So.
And Jim, I think I maybe asked it before, but your legend class, do you modify them a lot, or they are kind of stock?
It's stock. Well, the only thing you can change the wheels. So you can run aluminum wheels. In the back, you can change the axle and the gears, and you can change the guide. So it's fairly the motor is stock. The body obviously has to be stock.
And the tires?
Tires are stock, but you can change the wheels.
Oh, okay.
That's easy that's typically, I don't like that because it's so hard to check, but those have lettering on them. So if the Goodrich lettering isn't on there, the tire's not legal.
Okay.
But the stock tires work pretty well.
The stock tires, okay. Yeah. So
they're not super grippy, but they allow the car to slide a little bit, but I think you want that with a top heavy car.
Yeah, although they're like a small go-karts, right? They're pretty wide as well. So yeah, because I've done some laps. I mean, I was thinking maybe to do
just to give you an idea, on that track, the lap time, the fastest laps in the Pioneer Legends were about 4.7 to 4.8. The fastest car ever run is in the 3.8s. The Group C cars are in the 4.2s. So it's not like they're slow, but they are slow. I mean, but it's not like they're 2 or 3 seconds behind everything else.
No, but it's just like how much time does it take for me to kind of prepare 6 cars, right? Because that's the thing. So if I could use as many stock parts as possible, I think make things easier.
Yeah, you don't need to change the front wheels. I do just because they match. I don't want one plastic and one metal. So you don't need necessarily to change the front wheels. I would definitely recommend changing the guide. You could get by with the stock gears, but you're going to have to work on them a little bit because they're kind of clunky out of the box. So it's just, for us, it's just easier to allow changing the axle and the gears to metal gears.
Jim, I think I found something that's totally apropos for what you were doing.
Yeah. I was going to say something and I probably shouldn't, but I will anyway, because we can rub it in because we're good natured. Those are not SoCal racers. Those are the slow cal racers. Ian, you heard that here? So yeah. Little
On your-
general ribbing down there because the San Francisco Giants are not in it at all, and the two Southern California teams are still playing baseball. So we got to get them somehow.
On your Pioneer class, are you allowed to change the pinion that comes with it? Because it comes with the 11, 12, or 13 tooth.
Yeah, you can change the pinion, but it has to stay the stock ratio, which I forget what it is.
11, 33, or 12, or 13, 33.
Yeah, whatever the stock ratio is, you have to keep the stock ratio, but you can change the pinion and the spur.
Sounds like there isn't a stock ratio. The 3.
Well, whatever comes on the car.
No.
Well, if you buy the white kit, it comes with all 3 pinions. So
But isn't one installed on the motor?
11. 11 will be installed, but it'll come
Yeah,
out the 12 and
what-
13.
Yeah, whatever's installed on the motor as it comes. So
Okay.
So 11.
So 3 to 1.
right, yeah.
Very typical for those motors.
We run them pretty much stock. We don't allow wheel changes. The last time we ran them, we did allow guide changes, guide and wiring changes because that kind of goes hand in hand. And then glue and true all the tires, and you're allowed to coat the front tires. But otherwise, all the parts are original parts, original gears, original wheels. You know, and they run.
Anyone any issue with gluing in the bushings, for example? Because I noticed those are extremely wobbly.
Yeah, that's one of our standard race specifications is to glue in or secure the motor and the bushings and to make sure
Yeah.
screws don't fall out. So whatever method you want to keep screws from falling out. But as far as replacing parts, that's pretty much just the guide and wires for us. And the tires do hook up pretty good. Jules said there's some kind of
Rubber with
slash
urethane.
urethane. Yeah.
That's what they feel like.
Super thane.
Yeah, they
Super thing. Yeah.
they chew fairly easily, and they oil up a little bit, and they run good on sport track and wood and everything.
I think if you put super grips on this, they just roll over.
Yeah, for sure.
So the tire suits the car really well.
Yep.
The only problem with that super thane tire that I've found is sometimes you'll get out of round, like there'll be a harder part of whatever they've used in here and a softer part next to it. It won't get mixed properly or something. And people think then the rim is wobbly, but when you take it off, the rim is fine. So sometimes there's just I think it's just probably a manufacturing problem, but something with the mix on those tires is weird sometimes.
Okay.
And do you
Yeah,
guys
on
normally
my
run
car-
just
On my car for setup, I've got about 5 grams of lead right where the door is for the chip.
and you're just running the stock pinion, the 12 tooth?
11.
No, our rules allow you to change the pinion, but you can't change the number of teeth.
What?
So you can put a
No,
metal pinion on as long as it's the same number of teeth.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
I think we
And
run,
for the guide, any specific guide or any third party will go?
for us any guide that you like, as long as it doesn't cause any physical problems with the track.
So what's the guide of choice for those then? Because it's a terrible wobbly affair in the original car, isn't it?
Yes.
Jeremy makes guides for those.
I make a guide. I've been racing it. I've won races with the guide I make. But the problem is that 2 of the guys in our club that have used the same guide broke it on the first lap. So I don't know what the driving technique they use is different than mine, but mine's lasted a full season now, winning races. And these 2 guys, and so I'm like, I don't know what to do until I get an ABS molding machine. So
And a mold maker.
you have a mold? Yeah. Well, I know a guy who can make a mold for me. I just got to get a injection molding machine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Just tell those guys to go buy some other guide.
I know. Go buy the
Our
slotting
group-
plus.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Scale Auto guides in use and slotted guides in use and just all over the place. Just whatever they feel like using, whatever they think is a good guide. And yeah.
Maybe the guys he makes have got soft parts next to hard parts, and it's just a mild manufacturing issue.
Maybe this conversation has a soft part next to it.
All right, one of those changing directions. I don't know.
Does one of those two
I'm
people
kidding.
that broke the guide no longer race with you?
No, no, he broke one a long time. He broke a demo a long time ago. But no, I gave them out to new guys because we just started racing it this season, and everybody has trouble with that guide. So I've given it out to a few people, and they broke them. I don't know how they do it, but they must just be a different driving style.
Yeah,
on our track, these definitely take a different driving style. You can't, with a typical car, I drive it into the corner and get on the throttle really hard coming out. And with this car, I've got to drive it in really deep, use a lot of brakes, let it set, and then get on the throttle coming off. Because you try to go through a sweeper, it'll just tip. So it's just a different driving style.
So what you doing then? You're sticking it in really hard and pussyfooting through the sweeper?
Yes.
Yeah. And then jamming it hard on the exit again?
Yep.
They're quite peppy, the motor in those things, aren't they?
Yeah,
for an
they're great
18K.
motors. Is it the same one? Is it the same one that's in their Trans Am cars or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it's an 18K Typhoon, I think it is. It's
Yeah.
a little snappier than like the stock scale electric, I've noticed. I mean, I don't know how much.
Yeah,
it is, but it gets up a little faster.
It would probably handle being geared slightly higher if necessary for the right course. It would probably be better than the scale electric motor if your circuit was large and gearing was free.
And that's why we spec gearing on quite a few of the classes. We don't want you to have to change gears to go to another track. Just leave them the same, and then everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the reasoning behind that.
Gio's got his video. A video. Oh, and a legend running.
So this is
Yeah, it's-
completely stock.
Completely stock? Yeah.
Yeah, just basically drew the tires.
Are they noisy, Gio?
Some of them.
I don't think it's bad. I think mine is pretty quiet, but I've got the 12 tooth on there and then ran it in, and it's quiet as can be. Not compared to the Pioneer Trans Ams, those things are loud.
Mm-hmm.
But the 1132 or 1230, no, 33 gear. I wish they would use that in all their cars.
Nice to see Steve back. Haven't seen Steve in quite a while.
Yeah.
What's been going on?
No, we're still going. Picked up a couple of new members. We lost a couple. We try to keep it at 8. Every Thursday night. We're gonna do 15 years of it.
Out of curiosity, how did you pick up the new members?
I have a website on the track, and oh God, I'll get maybe, I don't know, half a dozen a month that would like to get involved. And not to sound rude, but we do a pretty strong vetting process. So we want them to fit in with the group and amongst, other things. I mean, so, we kind of do that and invite them back. We always invite them all over, once and see how that goes and how they meld in. It's just, at one point in time we had like about 12 and it's too much. It's a 2-lane track. You just don't get enough track time at night. 8's a nice number. 6 is perfect. Usually a couple of guys maybe can't come. Works out fine. It works out fine. We do a guest Saturday every couple of months and invite all the people in town we kind of have emails for. That's kind of fun, but it's going great. We do head-to-head racing, and there's 5 of us and no more. you know, everybody races everybody, so it becomes a long night. And when we get 6 or up, we do total laps, you know, 2 rotations on the track. It's a big track, so you know, it's 130 feet. You get 12, 13-second lap times. You do a lot of driving. Yeah.
Have
Do you have a
you,
picture
print-
over the track?
Pardon?
Do you have a picture over the track?
I can hardly hear you.
Picture the track.
Do you have a picture over the track?
I do, but how do you put it up?
It's been,
Ah,
it's been a long time. These guys have forgotten.
Gio, we have seen this layout before, and I'll be honest with you, it's very difficult to get it in one picture.
What's your website, Steve?
Can you get it up?
Yeah, what's your website?
Google Minnesota slot car track. Should be at the top. We're close.
Minneapolis slot car track?
Should.
Steve saying that you have a club that's always got 8 members reminds me of the story about the little rural town where the population never changed. Because every time a baby was born, some guy left town.
Try Minneapolis if that didn't work, Greg.
Yeah.
How many towns have you lived in now, Dennis?
There's the track. Then there's some close-up pictures that'll help.
Painted, it's Carrera, right?
It is.
People everywhere around this track.
500 of them, to be exact.
Wow.
Highly detailed.
Nice.
Go back to that, what looked like a big screen. That's the hill section. Go back to that, what looked like a big screen TV. Okay. This is kind of fun. You guys might get a kick out of this that like to do scenery. That's rolling video all the time. We're there during the night. And it's small. And the way you make it is you use an old iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just charge it up and go to YouTube, whatever class you're running that night, stick in some, you know, the videos of people running, and it's kind of a kick.
Nice.
That's neat.
There's
And dead easy.
There's the hill section in the back. It's a pretty good climb up it. It keeps going up and then it goes up again. It's about 1.5 feet up.
I love the elevation change. I think that's so cool.
And it's fun. You know, it's a fun, you know, adds a neat piece of variety.
Almost a bit of
Are the rails copper taped as well?
Pardon?
Are the rails copper taped or are they just,
No.
just regular?
It's Carrera.
Okay.
Painted Carrera. And right now I think those pictures show it analog. It's both analog and digital right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we run both.
Oh, really?
Yep. And
Well,
all we
in that
do,
case, then you can run 6 people all at once. Then
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And what I did with the digital unit, Carrera unit, is kind of interesting. So to switch it over to analog now, it's simply a matter of throwing 2 toggle switches that are, and that's it. Just shut the power off when running analog that comes into the digital. And when you're running digital, flip them the other way and you get the power supply that's run. That's all we do. Flick those 2 switches and we're running digital.
And what about lane changers?
They're fine. They don't care one way or the other. When you're in analog, they just stay straight ahead. And when you go to digital, they're digital. I mean, that really was all there was to it, was cutting 4 wires and putting in 2 toggle switches. You know, and that switches it over. Two power supplies. Digital has a separate power supply.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you only run in one direction all the time?
In analog?
Yeah.
No, I have switches, so it'll go both ways.
Oh, that's awesome. So you basically have, you know, three tracks.
Yeah, you could say it that way, but
Yeah.
we rarely reverse the analog. You know, we're so bad on it. I mean, your muscle memory gets so strong, you know, on a track, and you try to go the other way, and you're like you're handicapped.
Mm.
We
And
do run
generally-
we do run a handicap system, which is fairly unique. I think there's a few other places I've talked to over the years that do it, but we run a handicap system every night, however we race. If we're doing heads up racing one-on-one, everybody qualifies, and then we have a penalty for qualifying times as far as fuel fill-up time, which is how we alter. And when we run the digital, we do the same thing. So, or total laps even. So we added a handicap system. I don't know if any of you guys have run into it over the years, but as we went along, I'll go say maybe 5 years back when we started the handicap system. Maybe it was a little more, I'm not sure. But the same two people would win 70 to 90% of the time. And when we would run head to head, or however we'd run before the handicap system, everybody always brought their quickest car. If we were running the Can-Am class, the same Can-Am car generally showed up all the time, even though everybody maybe had 5 of them, 3 of them, 10 of them, whatever. And we tried to figure out a way to give new guys, slower guys, however you care to word it, an edge to win. And number 2, to get other cars out that just been sitting on the shelf forever. And the handicap system does that. You don't need the fastest car to win. The handicap system is right on the money. So that, I can explain it in detail. You got to message me if you wanted to, but it's very simple and very easy to use if you're able to vary the fuel fill-up time. And that's how we do it. We add a longer fill-up time for the faster handicap, and we have an equation for that will work on any track as long as it's a multiple of 10. And that's how we do it.
I use a fuel simulation or fuel in analog as well.
Yes, it started in analog. We only converted to digital about 2 years ago. It was, we bluntly aren't nuts about the digital racing compared to the analog for us. And I got a feeling it's a factor of just old guys having done slot cars for a long time. So, but we, every couple of months we'll run a digital night, and it runs fine and it's fun. Digital. There's a couple of other digital tracks in our group, guys that have them. Each of the guys in our group have a track of one kind or another, and it seems to always have some little quirk of one kind or another. Maybe it's the damn fuel stop system, maybe it's counting laps, but it's kind of always something. And that cooled us a little bit on it being, we had chipped a bunch of cars. We chipped Group C cars to start out with, and then we did sideways, 935s, that class. And we kind of left it there. We haven't done any other chipping of cars, but it's fine and it's fun when we do it. But we are an analog group. I make no bones about that.
Have you printed any bodies off lately, Stu?
No, I really haven't. I mean, it's funny you should ask that. I made right around 80 bodies during COVID for slot cars. That's how many I made. And a bunch of the bodies are down here in a bin. I've taken the parts. The parts got outrageous because I do sidewinders in all of them and so on. But so I started taking them apart as I did other ones. I've kept all the shadows that I made. I made every shadow, even ones you can't imagine. I mean, if you look at, I'll show you some, even ones I know you've never seen. I don't know if you can see this one or not, but the old Canon shadow.
Oh, wow.
But I've got all of them. Anyhow, what was my train? Oh, so I've been taking the ones I like, and I've kept maybe 50 of them, I guess, or 40 or 50. And just today, before I went on this, I decided I haven't run the honker for ever. So the honker started getting tuned, before you guys came on the air. And then the other one I was working on today, ironically, is it's the L&M. I probably haven't run it for a year, but no, I printed a lot of parts, still inserts, guides, chassis. I did a bunch of 50s cars, and that was, I haven't printed one for maybe 2 or 3 months, but then I'm in my next project will be go through the fly cars and get them all working. Mine are so beat up from the racing over the years, and posts are this are cracked, and on and on and on. So if I'm kind of in a pick a few cars when I'm up here tinkering and try and get them back together again.
Well, welcome to the Forever Project Club.
Isn't it? It really is. Yeah, don't get a lot done in the summer, but winter's on the horizon here in Minnesota. And
exactly, yeah. I mean, you were probably outside enjoying the weather all summer.
I come up here Thursday afternoon before the guys all come. I clean the track. Whatever class we're going to run, I grab a couple and see if they're working and work on those for a couple hours. And that's about it in the summer. I mean, you're playing with your big cars, and, you use the sports car and play with it, and, so go to shows, and I autocross it once in a while, and those things. But here comes winter.
I have a question.
The Cobra will go into storage somewhere in the next couple of weeks, and at my age, that's probably a good thing.
I had a question for you, Steve. You said that you just make a simple change with the power supplies, go from the digital to analog.
Yes.
You had to change the controllers out as well, don't you?
Yes.
Process.
Yeah, but they're plugged into the unit. They just put them under the table and sit them on a little shelf, and we use a lot of wireless controllers. Three of us use the wireless, and the other guys use the plungers. We kind of limit it to 5 at a time. Don't ask me particularly why, other than it seems to be less chaos. Maybe we're not that good at it, but
it does take a different driving ethic.
Yes.
To
it's fun. I mean, there's more laughs. It's nowhere near as intense because everybody's laughing at trying to screw each other up.
So I think your switch is similar to mine, where basically you have a whole analog control system.
Correct.
Wires come to the track, and you have the digital system. The wires go to, and the switch is between the track and those things.
That's correct.
Yeah. So the things can be on, and when you flip the switch, basically you're disconnecting the connection from the power base to the rails of one.
Yep.
And switching it to connect the power from the other thing to the rails.
Correct. You're basically stopping when you're in digital, you're stopping the power. When you're not in digital, you're stopping the power from getting anywhere near that unit, because I blew one out right away when I first got into it. So that's the simplicity of it. And when you go to analog, we turn off the analog controllers, and we also disconnect the analog controllers. We had kind of a beeping problem, which and a lot of people have had this beeping problem. From reading things, I've never known if it was us or a Carrera thing or a big track that's been around a long time, where some of the connections probably aren't great. I mean, we check them, quite often, all of them. But the point, all I know is that the controllers unplugged, everything seems a little more stable. So, big deal. It takes 30 seconds, That's about it. I mean, the way you're just went in and cut the red and the black wire from each lane in the digital, put the switch in, mounted the switches right on the Carrera board, and it was over.
Yeah.
I mean, holy cow. And, and I dropped whatever those tech boxes were, a couple $100 or something, back in the early days, when we were first getting into digital. Well, we blew that out pretty fast, with, whatever we ran and whatever the power was, it wasn't happy. And it's just a box with 2 chips in it, and it fried them. And I said, there's got to be an easier way to do this.
And that's it. And it is super easy.
It's pretty simple when yeah.
Yeah, for my track, I found a single toggle switch that had 4 ins and outs.
That's all you need. Yep. Yep. And I've got 2 of them. That's it. That's it.
That's the way to do it, because then the analog is not through a digital chip. The disadvantage is you don't, like if you've got Carrera Digital, for example, that's what you got. You got Carrera Digital, and you want to run analog cars. You either chip the lane, like what TechSlots and Axelbox and a variety of things do, or you install some kind of switch and do analog, but you've then got to get analog controllers and an analog power supply.
Correct.
And if you really want to have the full range of possibilities, you want to get a variable voltage power supply and adjustable controllers so that you're not having a,
we use a variable power supply pyramid on the digital, so it's feeding out.
If you want.
And then we use 2 separate power supplies on the analog, and then we do that to balance the lanes. I've never been on a track, bluntly, of any size where there isn't a favored lane. Whether it's easier to drive or longer or short, whatever it is. And so almost every class we have different setups on the 2 power supplies. We'll leave the red lane at a constant 12 we run at, but we will alter the white lane plus, it's usually plus slightly. Maybe it runs at 12.3 with I think it's 12.3 with the group C's. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. We dump the red lane now down to 11.5, that's right. And then we adjust the other lane. But every class of the 12 classes we have has a different setting because they're just all different. But, a few tenths here or there, so the lanes balance out,
Yeah, for analog, also you need a lap counter or a counting system as well, for instance.
Yeah, that's true.
In my case, I have, so mine is now either oxygen or analog, but basically I don't have, when I switch in analog, I don't have a lap counting, so I just do for throwing the laps around. And so that's something also to put in the equation as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Greg. Do YouTube videos run here on Zoom well, or do they run at all?
It usually works better when I'm the one running the video for whatever reason.
So you could feed that video off that track website that's there.
Yeah.
If you hit a lull, they might get a kick out of seeing that.
Yeah. Let me bring that back up here.
It's kind of fun. It's got a fun soundtrack. What a great hobby, though, right, guys? There you go. Sound up. That's not right.
not going to show the whole thing, but I'll put a. You know, it's a
That
great
is so
video. I've seen
cool.
it before.
That is so
I'll tell
cool.
you something. I'm surprised how steeply that hill drops. I don't think I've seen anything that steep before. That's really good.
That's
that
one
the
hill.
standard C?
That's the small hill. The climb up the hill is much bigger.
Is that using the standard Carrera up and down tracks?
That one is, yes.
Yeah.
The other one isn't. The other
There
one.
was in the digital group that Greg, I don't know if it's still running or try to resurrect. There was a truck that modified a piece of a Scalextric's truck that would change elevation. I don't know if it was like a 50% kind of steep. It was a crazy shit, man.
Yeah, and
nice truck.
It was towards the end of not the longest straight, but it was towards the end of a straight. So we'd have to be super, super careful not to just catch air and go flying off the end before that turn. Have to brake
I
hard.
once raced an analog wooden circuit that someone had made at home, and it had got a drop right on the beginning of the main straight, and with a very fast car and a very fast exit, you could catch air and miss the slot. Most cars would land in the slot, but you could just jump it too long if you were really, really pushing for it. So it was a exercise in self-control to make sure that you hit the slot every lap. Only with certain classes, of course, but yeah, that kind of drop. And it was only like a foot away from the turn onto the straight, but by God, it was. I
mean, if it's anything like Alan had a track called the Windsor, and it basically did that same kind of thing. Just a couple feet off of the beginning of the straight, it would just kind of do a real gentle dip. But like you said, with the right cars, you know, enough grip, enough speed, they would catch air. And just like you said, most of them would drop back into the slot, but sometimes, you know, unfortunately, the driver stood too. So, and it was against the drivers basically had their backs to a wall, and the main straight is in front of them. So, there was no marshals on the straight. So if your car came off on the straight and ended up anywhere, it was like chaos until somebody could get your car.
And there's another aspect to that, and that is that sometimes if you crest the hill very gently and you get in the power as you go down, you actually hit a higher terminal velocity just because you were in the power for more of the time than taking the long jump.
That too.
It's Supercross techniques, isn't it?
Yep.
Hey, Steve, do you have other tracks in the Minneapolis area, or is it just yours?
Yes.
How many you got up there?
The guys in my group, we have another good digital, a wonderful high-speed routed track. You know, three-lane routed track. It's another guy. A scaly scenic track, maybe 70 feet or so, nicely done. Another two routed tracks. What am I talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 6 more tracks in our group.
You're about 4 hours away from us. We've got
Really?
like 10. Yeah, we've got like 10 tracks in our area, and we're not as picky with our memberships, except for Canadians. We don't allow Canadians, but everybody else is welcome.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. When I played hockey, I had enough of the Canadians. They can stay up there.
Oh, you
Works
said
both ways.
Canadians,
That works both
not
ways,
Californians.
Oh, I said Canadians. I meant Californians. Yeah, my bad.
We just
Works
found
both
that
ways.
size worked well. I mean, if it just any more than that, then it was just too much. You know, that's why we do those open days. I mean, we're not trying to be pricky about it, but you know, what do you do when you can't have 12 people around and you know?
Come on, golf clubs are by invitation too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I always feel pretty shitty when we aren't eating these guys. You know, it's just the way it is, I guess.
That's probably a smart way to do it, because I mean, we're always open to new members, but when there gets to be a race night with, you know, 2, 3, 4 more members than usual, it's like, oh crap, okay, we're gonna have to readjust how we race because we've got more people than usual, and we can't fit all the racing we normally do with all.
That's
that
right.
many people.
Yeah, you get a lot of people. That night's not going to be a head-to-head racing night, so where everybody can race everybody because you can't, not enough time, so you end up doing total laps, for sure. I don't, guys come and go. I mean, during COVID, of course, we were shut down, and as COVID ended, when we all were under the illusion that we were good because we'd gotten a shot, we lost 3 guys just during COVID, so that, and new guys, now you kind of alter your classes because you don't expect them to buy a car for every one of your 12 damn classes, and you lend them cars and do that, and they slowly have to learn the track and on, but it's just evolves. We've been going 15 years this track, so you learn a few things.
Yeah, pretty normal.
Steve, I noticed you have a lot of really nice looking models.
Yes.
Race with. Do you build those yourself primarily?
Totally, completely.
Okay. What kind of painting system do you use?
Painting. I'm a rattle can guy.
Okay.
Testers sometimes, or some oddball one. If it's back, like this honker that I showed you. I mean, took forever to find the honker color. It's gone fine. The paint jobs, bluntly, I mean, are really very nice. They're all 3D printed. I don't know what to say. I mean, that 3D printed was the greatest find during COVID I could have had. I bought the printer in March. That was at 2021 or whenever they decided that we had to wear masks. I think that was March of 2021, maybe 2020. I don't remember. Whichever one it was. And it was like, well, now what? And there were no files to print slot cars. Kind of a couple of us got going on it, and that grew into a group of about 7. And then that got us through COVID. And of course, now it's become a mainstay, integral. It's woven into this hobby, wonderfully. But it wasn't that way, So yeah.
Yeah, COVID definitely kind of put a jump start.
Yeah, you were there, Greg, at the beginning.
I don't do a lot of cars, but yeah.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you're never. I know. To each his own. But you can do everything. I mean, all the chassis are 3D printed. All the inserts are 3D printed. All the guides are 3D printed. The bodies, of course. Some of the drivers, and then all the detail work, whether they be stacks or roll bars or whatever parts.
I've seen 3D printed brushless motors.
Really?
I mean, you still got to slip the neodymium magnets into the printed outer bit and then wind the wire on the printed inner bit and stuff. But I've seen them. They're big. You're not going to stick them in a slot car.
That wouldn't be me.
Yeah, that's definitely over.
Anyway.
All right, Jim, you got your hand up. What's up?
Just something really quick. If you're interested in the ultimate in our little hobby, the World Championships are happening literally right now in Italy. They're in the semifinals. I think this is the first of 3 semifinals. The finals. Dennis, is this 32nd scale F1 or is it 24 scale F1?
There's no such thing as 24 scale. It's all, if it's F1, it's 32nd.
Okay, this is F1 Eurosport, which is the slowest of the classes, but it's happening right now. Here's it's Tuscany Racing Slot on YouTube. It's live. The finals of the 32nd scale Eurosport went till 3 a.m. local time a couple of nights ago. So, and then tomorrow it'll start with 24 scale Eurosport. And they've been there since last Tuesday and they're racing through this Saturday. So it's a crazy event, and massive track for what we're used to, but it's happening right now.
Wow.
And Gugu leading. Wow.
I forget in that was the first semi. I think Luca was ahead.
Anyway, whatever.
That was the slow semi. So there's 16 guys to go that theoretically are faster.
Yeah. Yeah, They call them semifinals, but there's 3 of them.
There's 3
so-
of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
top,
that's the
there's,
top
there's
24.
there's 90 entries in this race. The top, they run heats. If they qualify first, they run heats based on your qualifying time. The top 24 overall times advance to 8 car semis.
Right.
From the semis, the heats are 3 minutes, semis are 4 minutes. The top 8 out of the 3 heats then advance to a 5-minute per lane final.
What
And so
are
that's the basic format.
what are the cars?
That is Eurosport basically means it's open. There's F1, there's 32nd scale, and there's 24 scale. These are scale cars. They're not wing cars. So they're somewhat scale looking bodies. They've kind of morphed over the years, but they don't have the big side dams on. This is the scale World Championships in Italy.
Okay.
So basically 24 scale is a Can-Am light car,
Oh, yeah.
as is 32nd, and then the F1 are open wheel. And they do run a production race. The first race of the event is production, which is a 2-man team. And it's handout chassis, handout motors, handout, flexi car type cars with 2-man teams for production.
Okay.
And then there's the 3 open classes, 32nd scale F1, 32nd Euro, and 24th Euro. And predominantly, well, like I said, these are open motors. And the race yesterday or the day before was won by a brushless motor for the first time.
Yeah.
Huh.
And
I
brushless
think
motors are dominating.
I think there was one brush motor in F1 and everything else was brushless, other than obviously production, which is a handout brush motor.
And, brushless are dominating. Andrea Novielli, who is NSR, that's him. He just missed the A main. I think he was the 9th qualifier after the semis. So he's there with a 4 or 5 person factory team from NSR. Quite frankly, they're dominating.
Huh.
So yeah, brushless is, if you don't have one, you're probably not going to win now. Last year they were really fast, but they didn't win. This year they're winning.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just a whole different genre of our sport. It's the ultimate in scale appearing slot cars. We've got
depends. That's a pretty loose
but as opposed to wing cars, they're not the wing cars. There's I think 4 or 5 guys from my area there. So the Americans don't do too well because we only race Eurosport like once a year, and the Europeans and the other countries, they race that quite a bit. So we're kind of at a disadvantage, only racing that class once a year in the United States, virtually. I mean,
what do you think?
Justin Colvin, who I've beaten the last 3 times I've raced him here, is qualified 9th in F1 Eurosport, I think, as of now. He hasn't run his semi, so whether he makes the main or not, we'll wait and see. But he's a local guy, and I hope he does well.
Yeah.
Do you think that brushless are more winning because of the technology getting better and better ESCs, or familiarity with them, or both?
I don't know, but my opinion would be it's the lighter weight and they're just blazing fast. I was watching practice last week, and Andrea's car was just unbelievably, even in the video, which is hard to see because it's so, it's a good video, but it's hard to see on YouTube. You can tell how fast his car is, and the lightweight, and so they're just crazy fast.
Yeah. The big advantage is, I mean, there's a bunch of advantage, but the biggest advantage, you're right, Jim, it's the lightweight. Why they have now started winning is, guys have been playing with open brushless motors for 30, 40 years. So they're well advanced. Playing with open brushed motors or brushless motors is fairly recent. So the boards are getting better. The actual motors, guys are figuring out how many magnets, where the magnets are going to be, what the winds are going to be. So now they seem to be pretty much on a par performance-wise, but the added benefit of the brushless is, you get rid of all that weight in the back of the car. It's actually good for that side of the hobby because they last forever. They don't last forever, but they last a hell of a lot longer, and they are dirt cheap compared to a traditional brushed open motor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in theory,
Well, even
a
as you
brush
get
motor
down
for
to
a brushless motor for that class is about $400 or $500. In theory, you could put it in and race it the whole week without even taking it out of the car. And you can't
Well-
do that with brushed motors.
Yeah, no, in New Jersey, Boudreaux ran practice, qualifying, and his race with a brushless motor to win.
the same
Yeah.
motor all the way through the three. Yeah.
One of the guys that races with us, Herman James, he told me that if he went to the Worlds, he would spend $2,000 per class in motors.
In the old days.
Yep.
The other thing, even in the lower classes, or especially in some of the lower classes, it's going to make a big difference, the brushless motors. I know that, for example, the South African racers now, because brush motors are so expensive because of their exchange rate problem, a lot of their classes where they were running, Secan X12 motors that were costing them, the motors are $90, $100 a piece from here. Now they're going to go to motors with the same or slightly better performance for $20 a piece.
Right.
And that's going to make a big difference to their regular racing, let alone to racing at this level.
Right. Well, and that $20 motor will last.
Oh yeah,
longer
yeah,
than
all the way
5
through.
or 6 of the
Unless
other
unless you screw up the bearings or something,
Yeah.
in which case you take it out and then $10 worth of bearings, and back it goes again, and away you go. I mean, I've done that on some of those motors already.
Yeah, and to Chris's
Replace
point
the
also,
bearings.
we're just at the beginning. We're at the tip of the iceberg of development for these brushless motors in some of these classes, and they're
Yeah.
already dominating.
Sure.
So it'll only get better and better.
I mean, there have been some problems at the Worlds this year with guys. Walker McNulty, for example, one of the American guys from North Carolina, who's there, put his car on his Formula One on the track to qualify, and he'd been running times that were in the top 3 or 4 overall because he's a really good racer. He was production champion last year. And he put his car on the track and it didn't move. And there you are. I mean, now he had to start in the very bottom heat. And it seems like there were problems with the board. We don't know exactly yet, but they've had some problems. So right at the top of level of racing right now, the guys are having some problems with reliability with the brushless motor systems. But quite honestly, at lower levels, it's actually a very reliable system.
Yeah, there was a couple of funny things happened during the racing the last couple of days. Maybe if I can get a hold of the people and get the rights to copy some of their video. There was one where a car came off the track and the gear caught in the turn marshal's pants.
Mm-hmm.
It took him about a minute to unravel his pants from the gear. The other one was Andrea Novielli from NSR. When he started his first practice last week, he put the car on and it went backwards. So even at the top, they do stupid stuff like we do.
That's just not checking. That's silly.
Yeah, but it was funny to see it. It was funny to see it. So.
Yeah. But yeah, it's making a big difference. I ran 3 brushless motors at the US Nationals earlier in the year, and if we had not been allowed to run brushless motors, I doubt that I would have run those 3 classes because I couldn't afford that kind of performance. I had the chassis. I modified some old chassis. They work great. The older chassis work fine with the lighter motors now. So there's old equipment that's coming back because we can use it again.
So I noticed in the chat some of the guys were complaining in the heat races a lot of track calls. Did you notice that in the 32?
Yeah, there was a lot. I'm not sure why. The cars looked like wing cars when they came off. So whether they're just too fast and they don't have enough downforce, but there was a lot of track calls in the 30-second Euro race.
All right.
Well,
Part of
they,
the all right. There's
yeah, they
two
come
things
out, they
that
have no brakes. Yeah.
there's two things that happen at that level. Number one, the motors that those guys are using in Euro 32 and in 24 Euro. The big problem there is with the 6-magnet bells that they use on those motors. They don't have a lot of brakes, inherent brakes when they come out of the slot. I mean, no slot car motor generates brakes when it comes out of the slot, but they are much worse because there's no inherent magnetism, or not as much inherent magnetism that is slowing the armature down. And of course, the armature is on the outside, so it has more momentum now. So that's the one problem that they have with brushless motors. The other problem is one that they have with Europe, with all the ISRA races, and that is that the way that they build the tracks, the braid recess is very shallow. So the braid of the track is very close to the surface, which means that when guys come off, you have to stop and readjust the braids on the car. Otherwise, if the braiding on the car is even slightly out, when you put the car back in, it just comes straight out again. And I know that they've had that problem in the past.
Yeah,
So
I noticed
may
that too,
also
Dennis.
be still contributing to the problem.
I didn't know why that was happening. So I saw every time the car comes off, they would readjust the braid. I didn't know why
You
that.
have to reset the braids, yeah, in most cases. Certainly you have to check the braid, but it is a bit of a problem that they have with the way that those tracks are built with the very shallow braid recess.
So what, hasn't that been a problem in the past?
Well, the cars had brakes, so when they came out, they didn't hit the wall and
they didn't hit the wall as hard.
right.
And but even then, I mean, you know, if you look at last year or you look at the year a couple of years before, there was a lot of track calls for braid settings.
Well, I think going back to the weight, the lack of weight makes the car handle better, but the lack of weight also contributes to the crash when it comes out because it's on that edge. And to me, it's akin to a magnet car in HO. You get to the limit, but when you hit the limit, the car just goes. It doesn't just kind of come off and glide or whatever. It just comes off hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think I didn't think about that, Dennis, with the way the braid recess was, and that's probably why a lot of the old school guys were complaining about the track calls, because if you got to fix the braids, you got to stop for a minute, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well,
or they just keep coming
anyway. The guys can turn marshal, turn the car over, check it out, flatten them down, and go. But even so, it still means that they're stopping the race.
Ruptures.
Now that may not be the situation, but I remember that from last year, definitely. Anyway,
That kind of segues into one of my questions that I was going to ask, and that was about the braid on the wood routed tracks, and in particular the issues that's going on with the track at Electric Dreams, how we had to do a lot of maintenance on that, and the characteristics of putting braid that's going to be more long lasting or more durable or whatever. What type of techniques are used for that? I know this is completely outside of the Euro racing and everything, but it was something that I was interested in and finding out about the braids on routed tracks, seeing the problems that they kind of.
Typically, you want the braid to be between 10 and 15 thousandths below the track surface. Any more than that, and it starts to provide problems with 1/32 scale cars because it effectively reduces the depth of the slot with very shallow guides. And also you get more disruption of the car as it drifts across the braid because our tires are not very wide. 1/24 scale cars with 3/4 of an inch wide or more tires at the back, they kind of glide over the top of that because they don't really fall into that little depression very much. But with narrower tires and rubber tires, they fall into that depression. And partly that's why it starts to pull the braid up on, and because you'll see it always rolls up on the inside, and it's because of the car bouncing across it and picking the braid up. But quite honestly, there's at Electric Dreams, and this is a personal opinion. So people can talk to me about it later if they want to. But if the rules at Electric Dreams were a little different, we would have a lot less problem with braid. And all that you need to do is to lift the front of the car, make sure that the rules say that you have to have a certain clearance under the front of the car while the car is standing on its wheels. Because in that, as soon as you do that, then it makes sure that people are driving the cars while they're running on their front wheels. And then you can adjust the guide in such a way that the braids can take up some of the little variations in the level of the braid on the track. What happens at Electric Dreams is that the guys run the front ends of the car so low, and they run with quite a bit of weight on the guide, and then as soon as the track braid lifts a little bit, it upsets the car. And so they're forever trying to roll down the braid. Whereas what they should be doing is forever trying to set the cars up so that it rides over those imperfections in the braid.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
Yep.
I remember some of those offs. I'm like looking at the braid that they're complaining about. I'm not even seeing what they're complaining about.
Oh, it doesn't have to be much.
No, with the
I know it doesn't have to be much, but even so.
Right.
Yeah, but like you said, if the rules were adjusted for a front clearance, then
yeah, because right now we have no rule about front clearance.
Yeah, but in that case, such a minor imperfection would not be a big deal. Yeah. Food for Marco's thought. All right, a few minutes left. Anybody else got anything? And we can keep talking about tracks.
The reason behind it, because I'm contemplating again doing a router track in addition to some of the other tracks, my main track, and I want to kind of not do or fall into the trap that requires all the maintenance that's necessary, or just seems to be necessary for the
But remember that particular track gets a massive amount of use.
Yeah.
Right.
And it gets a massive amount of use with guys that are running lots and lots of laps with high grip tires. I mean, my home track here has been up and running for 2008 to 16 years. And I put the braid down with double-sided tape, not even glued down, and it hasn't lifted anywhere in the corners.
No, true.
But it has, in that 15 years, it probably hasn't had anywhere near the amount of use that the Electric Dreams track gets in a month.
And how many guys run on that with 900,000 grams of magnets on there as well, Dennis?
Nowadays, not very many, but we did have that problem in the beginning because it was magnetic braid, yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing. If you run with magnetic braid, you're going to pull the braid up on the track much quicker too.
Yeah, I'm the same. My track has braid, and I've been running on it for 20 years, no issues whatsoever. But at Ernie's track, when we had the magnetic braid, and that was 10, 15 years ago, and guys were stacking magnets 6 or 7 high, it was an issue.
Yeah, and you know that's happening when you see that little section of straight right in front of the driver's panel. That's where the braid comes loose. Then you know this is because the guys are loading in magnets, and every time somebody puts a car down right in front of them, that's what loosens that braid.
Yeah, so either don't use Magna braid, so that's never an issue, or get a magnet marshal and then set a limit.
Sure.
Well, I mean, Dennis is absolutely right. If you set the rules so that any slot car, not that I'm saying that this is the way you should do it, but any slot car that runs with its front wheels on the track and the front wheels actually supporting some of the weight will alleviate some of those issues as well.
Yeah, but when all of those things are taken into consideration, then a braided track will pretty much outlast, you know, as far as maintenance is concerned.
Yes.
Plastic isn't even in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
And then copper tape is still fairly distant from braid as maintenance wise, because
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of braided tracks in England, which is, I mean, the longest running tracks ever that have been around for years and years and years. But I mean, braid is on top of the track. So as the car's rear tires slide across the tape, after a while they tend to, you tend to grab it and stuff like that. So
I had massive trouble with that with earlier taped tracks.
Yeah, but
rolling up the inside.
Yeah, but a braided track set well with, as Dennis said, a 10 thou, 15, 12, 15 thou recess. The other thing is, as soon as you start putting tons and tons of glue on the track, you got to start cleaning the track, and the track cleaners do soften the glue sometimes.
The solvent, yeah,
you get into an issue there. But if you were running, urethane tires or silicone tires or something on a well done braided track, you'd be doing it forever.
Mm-hmm. Can I share a photo just so that people can see the kind of thing that we were talking about? There we go. This is the guy who won the 132nd scale Eurosport class yesterday, and this is the car that he was running. I believe it's a Horkey. It might be a Dubik. I'm not sure, but it comes either out of the Czech Republic or out of Belarus. But it's in the Eurosport classes, the F1 Euro, the 132nd Euro, and the 124th Euro, they're all one body classes, and the bodies are approved ahead of time. So the only difference you're going to see is in how increasingly or decreasingly terrible the paint jobs are, because they're all vacuum formed from 5 thou to 7,000 thick material, so they're very flimsy. No, this is not actually the winner. This is the guy who came third. He's a guy from the Czech Republic, Frankie. So this will be a Horkey chassis. And there's the brushless motor in the back with a reduced shaft. It's 2 millimeters out the back, and it'll be 1.5 millimeters out the front where the pinion is, with a 5-tooth EDM cut pinion that costs about $30 a piece for the pinions, onto it'll be 5 to probably to a 40-tooth 72-pitch spur gear that is glued onto the axle, and then all of the major boss of the gear is cut away to save weight. The speed control board is set to the one side because there's a wire spine that goes down the middle of the car to stop it bottoming the middle of the car on the track as it accelerates, because they're actually quite flexible. You can see all these multiple little cuts down the side here. That's all to give a certain amount of side-to-side flex of the car. And then they stick these little bits of gel tape over it at certain points. I guess you can see my pointer, right?
Yep.
And so they stick these little bits of gel tape over to dampen some of that movement. But even then, there's little bits of gel tape on the pin tubes that hold the front end, and then the the rear pin tube is solid in a piece that runs down a piece of spring steel that runs down the side of the body, and that allows the back of the body to rattle independently of the front end, or to move vertically independently of the front or the rest of the pan. They're unbelievably complex things. They cost like $200 a frame.
Yeah, if you do look at Dennis's or the picture that Dennis has got up there right now, you can see how low they run the front ends. You can see all the bits of glue that the elephant ears have picked up on. Oh,
There they go. Yeah. So this is from the bottom. So these little wing ears at the front, they actually drag on the track. Most of the time, the car will drag on the track all the way from the front of that ear all the way inward, probably to just where that very last little cut is before you get to the center of the frame. And that piece won't drag. They'll set them that way. And so that's part of why you want the braid, or that's you can do this because the braid is recessed. That's the first. This one actually, at the end of a race, those braids actually looked in way better condition than they normally would at the end of a race. So he's done well. Maybe he changed braid at some stage during the race. The negative braid is always a little bit shorter than the positive braid because it arcs and wears out during the race. But yeah, that's the thing. And they have at the back of the track, at the back of the chassis, there's this piece of wire down the middle that provides a hinge down the middle of the chassis that allows the rear end motor and rear axle to pivot independently of the front end of the chassis. So those little ears up the front keep the guide nice and square in the slot, while the rear end can move around a little bit to provide the kind of grip and a little bit of simulated, I guess, differential action, allowing the inside tire to lift a little bit. I don't know if there's more. Oh yeah, that's looking right up close up at the front, showing the braid and showing the rub. Everybody, you always have a look at this, at these telltale marks after practicing or during a race, to tell you what the chassis is doing. If the gunge that you pick up is pretty even along the front, then you know that your car is well set for the track. Okay.
Dennis, do you think the braids don't wear as much because they're brushless?
I think it's true, but I've seen brushless, particularly the 124th Eurosports. I've seen them wear braid out so that there's literally less than a quarter of an inch braid left at the end of a race. So they still do wear, but they don't wear as much because the motors are more efficient. They don't draw as much current. Yes, I agree. I would agree with that.
Bless you. And on
how's that for a segue right into your?
I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, but as usual, we'll keep talking. And until next week, everybody, bye.
Thanks, Greg.
All right.
Thanks.
There's another nice photo that I've just seen there. Hold on a moment.